We'll start with our Mariners, as we always do when the Seahawks aren't doing much. Starting on June 12th versus the Marlins, an 8-1 win to begin a 6-game homestand. Two players of the game to start that series against Miami. Player of the game number 1, right-handed pitcher Bryce Miller, 6 innings pitched, 1 hit given up, 1 run allowed, 3 walks, and 6 strikeouts. So a nice outing for Miller after two struggling starts against the Yankees and the Rangers, which, I've said it in our recaps of those games. Those are tough starts, especially against those teams, some of the best offenses in all of baseball. So to have those struggles really, isn't that big of a slight on Miller, who again has not pitched against AAA hitting and is coming up straight from AA and is essentially learning how to pitch at the major league level on the fly. Our second player of the game, who is not on our photo of the game here, it is J.P. Crawford with this photo by Matthew Bermudez. First baseman Ty France, 1 hit, 1 run, and 3 RBIs, a 3-run homer to really help put the exclamation point on this game as the Mariners would be able to take game 1 from the Marlins. The Marlins, a team that's started the season off pretty well and could challenge for their division. There's a lot of good talent all up and down that lineup. So to hold them to 1 run in that win was great. Let alone scoring 8 runs of your own. In game 2 on June 13th versus the Marlins, a 9-3 win. Our player of the game, designated hitter Mike Ford. 3 hits, 3 runs, 3 RBIs as the Mariners again jump all over the Marlins, get out to a big lead. They do give up 3 that day, but that's, compared to 9, not that big of a slight. Our photo of the game, despite having some good ones of Mike Ford, as he hit 2 homers in that game. It was only his second multi-homer game of his career. The other one also coming at T-Mobile Park in 2019, but he was a member of the Yankees at the time. So nice to see, Mike Ford get that. Cal Raleigh in this photo of the game by Brian Saldana, looking pretty lovingly at the home run trident, which is fun to see, as Cal homered in that game as well. So, nice first 2 games to start the series, big offensive games, something you've needed. We've talked about the offensive consistency for years now. I wouldn't say weeks because that would be a lie. And in game 3, not so much of that, though. The first 2 games, just big offense. The pitching's able to get stuff done as we've expected, as we've seen throughout the course of the year. Game 3, not so much. June 14th versus the Marlins, a 1-4 loss. This one was tough. This one was very tough. The starting pitching did its job. The relief, 2 runs against is not bad. So 2 runs to start it against the starter, not bad. That's manageable. That should be manageable. Justin Topa ended up giving up 2 runs later in this game. The end of the day doesn't really matter. 2 and 4 is pretty reasonable. When your offense only gets 1, though, that's not as much. This was a tough break because Eugenio Suarez had 3 balls die on the warning track that otherwise probably should have been homers if the weather had been a little bit better. It was a little bit chilly that night. So that was pretty brutal, and including which was featured in our photo of the game by Chris Liu. Chris is making his debut here. A home run robbery by Marlins outfielder Jesus Sanchez. Sanchez robbing this one on the warning track. It would have been a game-tying grand slam. Instead, excuse me, it turns into a sac fly. Ty France scores, and the Mariners only get 1 run. So that was tough. To lose that one, you arguably should have at least gone to extras. You arguably would not have been in that position had you been able to score more runs earlier throughout the course of the game. That's a different issue. But it's a series win. It's a series win against a good Marlins team. Series wins are what playoff teams do, right? So we go over to this White Sox series where the White Sox, coming into the series, they were under 5. They were 10 games under 500. They haven't looked at all like the team they were last year, and they're just relatively struggling. So the Mariners are able to pull one out, a tight one, on June 16th on Friday, the 3rd time that the Mariners have worn their City Connect jerseys. They get their first win in those City Connect jerseys, a 3-2 win, a nice and tight one there. Our player of the game, right fielder Teoscar Hernandez, 2 hits, 1 run, and 2 RBIs, a go-ahead solo homer in the 7th. June 17th versus the White Sox, I almost skipped there. Our photo of the game here in this nice and tight win. This game, the Mariners had a 2-run lead early. They gave up the 2 runs to tie this thing up, and then late, Teoscar Hernandez hits the game go-ahead a home run late in the seventh inning, celebrates with the trident there, and the Mariners would be able to get a win in that one to begin that series. Game 2, June 17th. This was the day that the Mariners wore their Steelheads jerseys, so they're the Steelheads this day. The Steelheads would lose to the White Sox in tight fashion. Unfortunately, this one was one of the more frustrating losses over the course of the entire season. Played the game shortstop J.P. Crawford. J.P. 1 hit, 1 run, 1 RBI, and 2 walks on the day. So J.P. able to reach base 3 times in the Steelheads uniforms there, as you can see in the photo of the game by Liv Lyons. This was a tough one. This was a very frustrating contest to see. Just again, the offensive inconsistency here. This game went into extra innings. The Mariners had a lead going into the ninth too. They would give that up. They would go 3-2. They had a lead 3-2. They pitched Paul Sewald back-to-back days. And the Yankees, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself. The White Sox are able to push a run across to tie this thing up to send us to extra innings. In extras, it would take 11 innings, but Chicago would get that 4th run, and the Mariners were unable to respond, and just frustrating. It was another sort of exclamation point about the offense's inconsistency, the offense's inability to score runners in scoring position. Just frustrating all around. And the Mariners did have a few chances with the bases loaded, I do believe. So that was tough. Excuse me, especially when it started off pretty well. JP hit a leadoff homer. Continues to have great games when he's played in the Steelhead jersey. Had the grand slam in his first game in it. I believe he was 1 for 3 with an RBI in his second game last year, and then the leadoff homer in this one as well. So just tough to lose that one. But again, series wins are what important. So it's important for you to bounce back and get the rubber match. And the Mariners were able to do so on June 18th versus the White Sox. A 5-1 winner. Player of the game, left fielder Jared Kelenic. Kelenic 1 hit and 3 RBIs. A bases loaded clearing triple late into this one to an 8th inning, matter of fact, to give the Mariners much needed insurance after we obviously know what I mentioned. Last game happened where they gave up the run in the 9th inning to tie things up. But Kelenic makes sure that doesn't happen, snaps the Mariners 0 for 6 streak with the bases loaded over the course of the homestand, and is able to clear that off, give the Mariners some good insurance runs after they had really been dominated by Chicago starter Lance Lynn. Lynn had 16 strikeouts on the day against the Mariners, which is a White Sox franchise record, tied for the franchise record. And the Mariners offense, they had gotten 2 runs across in the 3rd inning as Julio Rodriguez doubled to score Cal Raleigh and J.P. Crawford. But after that, they'd really gone stagnant and looked bad. So I'm talking heavily about the offense, and you'd think that, I'd go to a photo for our photo of the game here of an offensive player, but no, I rather went with this photo of Eugenio Suarez here by Liz Wolter, celebrating the first of the 3 outs in the 9th inning there. Really ecstatic play by Eugenio to get that out. And it was a tough one. I think it was especially after the way that, the game before had gone, just frustrated with that sort of loss and wanting to make sure that they get the series win. They end the homestand out on the right note, and they don't let this one get away. So that was important. We go over to our player of the week here. I went with Teoscar Hernandez. Over the past 7 days, that encapsulates the entire homestand because there was a day break in between the 2 series. Teo, 10 hits, 4 runs, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 1 stolen base, a .385 batting average, a .448 on base percentage, and a .731 slugging percentage. So Teo really continuing to find his stride in the month of June, which is great to see from Teo, because I know the first few months for him were a little bit slow. People were wondering, what the whole deal was. It was stated at the beginning of the year that Teo starts the year off slow. That's always how it goes. But that's for the folks who always seem to over-exaggerate. Anyway, as you can see on the banner, 2 series wins. Is this progress? I'd say there's progress, but again, you look at the Game 3 against the Marlins, you look at Game 2 against the White Sox, and even for the most part, Game 3 against the White Sox, that offensive consistency continues to show. In the in the White Sox, the 2 games to begin the series against the White Sox, manager Scott Service talked about focus. He talked about, better plate appearances, maybe watching for that extra ball to draw the starter out and knock the starter out early. They had knocked a bunch of the starters out they had played against early on to get into the bullpen. And that was important, especially with the White Sox coming into town, having the night before thrown 6 relievers out there against the Dodgers, and then coming into to Seattle. Seattle was able to jump on that, and set themselves up really. Miami, not Chicago. No, it was the Chicago series. Yes, that's right. Because the night before, yes, okay. The series opener against Chicago, not really able to do it, 3-2. Game 2, no. Game 3. So it didn't really work out in that series. The Miami series, it did. They were able to get the 2 starters out early, and it kind of worked in their favor. Obviously, they lose game 3. Some frustration and some bad luck in there. Yes. Do I think it's progress? To answer the little question mark on the screen there, yes, I do think it's progress. After the really rough stretch against the Yankees and the Rangers, the starting pitching staff looks to kind of settle back in. Again, those are 2 really good offenses, and when your offense isn't supplying their own job and doing their own part, holding their end of the bargain up, it can be a lot. I'm sure it can be a lot, and it can be overwhelming. So you still need to see more consistency at the plate, and you're going to have a big test here on this upcoming road trip against 2 great teams, both of them in the AL East. But I do think there is some progress. I do think there is progress here. I think it's important to note that. And there are some guys that are getting hot and are finding their groove. There are also some guys who kind of struggled over the past homestand. JP Crawford, had that good game on the 17th, but his past 7 days weren't too great. 4 hits over 22 plate appearances for a 176 batting average. He had 3 extra base hits, but 6 walks to 6 strikeouts, not so great. So, and that's incredible to think about as well, because JP was actually one of the best hitters on this team for the large majority of the season. So if he can get out of this slump of sorts, you make the offense even more dangerous. So it really is just about taking better plate appearances, not chasing, taking more of that simple approach that we really saw in this last game, which I know I say taking a simple approach, and then you think about, they struck out against Lynn 16 times. Yes. So it really is about finding that consistency, and they haven't hit it yet. They really have not hit it all season. They're going to have a tough test to do so, though, when their next road trip rolls around. So we'll get to injury and roster-related news here. On the 12th of June, right-handed pitcher Penn Murphy was placed on the 15-day injured list with right elbow inflammation. As a corresponding roster move, the team selected right-handed pitcher Ty Adcock from Double-A Arkansas. And also to make room on the 40-man roster for Adcock, left-handed pitcher Robbie Ray was placed on the 60-day injured list with a left flexor strain. The move was made to make room for Adcock, as I mentioned, on that 40-man roster. Robbie has been around the team and the clubhouse as of recently. He's got this giant arm brace on as he continues to rehab and get back from Tommy John surgery. Obviously very, very early in that rehab and recovery, but it's nice to see Robbie around, a veteran guy who can help out this young pitching staff. So that's it for team and roster related moves. The Mariners sit at 500. They're directly at 500 with a 35-35 record. Sits them as still at 4th in the AL West. It'll be a big and important test to see if they can really find some ground with the Astros kind of vulnerable right now, having been swept by the Reds. Yordan Alvarez just went on the injured list. So can they jump the Angels and the Astros and take advantage of this? It won't be easy, but there is an opportunity there. So it starts in the Bronx against the Yankees, June 20th through 22nd. All of those games are at 4:05 p.m. Pacific time. June 20th, 21st, and 22nd are all at 4:05 p.m. PST. Seattle looking to get some revenge back after really getting manhandled by the Yankees in the series here in Seattle, in the first 2 games at least, before having to walk off the Yankees in Game 3 to end that series and salvage a game. This next series against this other AL East opponent normally would have been sort of shrugged upon because the Orioles really have not been that good for years to come. And that has resulted in why, they have all this young talent right now. The Orioles are good. The Orioles have a really quality start to the 2023 season, and it won't be any sort of cakewalk when the Mariners start their 3-game series in Baltimore starting on June 23rd. June 23rd, a 4:05 p.m. Pacific time start. June 24th at the Orioles, a 1:05 p.m. start. And then June 25th at the Orioles, a 10:35 a.m. start to round out that 6-game road trip. Again, a tough road trip against the AL East. It will not be easy, but if Seattle really wants to keep some momentum up and really build on that, they're going to have to come out of this 6-game set with a positive record.